It's 10:33, and welcome to the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast, where we explore our shared love for watching and discussing movies recorded in the late after-work hours, often in lieu of a good night's rest. I'm Julian.
I'm Emilio.
And I'm Madeline. The three of us are colleagues at a Midtown Manhattan music school. Yes, music is what brings us together, but movies are what keep us together talking at the end of the night. So we've created some order to this ongoing trend by recording these conversations.
In addition to these main episodes, we record and release bonus one-off episodes as we see fit. While we do this, you, the listener, can count on the three of us doing what we've grown to love, foregoing sleep for a discussion about movies every other week.
And this week, we continue our current cycle of movies related to high school with a category we call Two Shot, where we focus our lens on two movies with some striking commonalities, some obvious, some not so obvious, and discuss their themes, characters, and other salient details that stood out to us. And this week, that pair of movies is a classic pair of high school buddy comedies, and that would be Superbad and Booksmart.
Fun pair of movies. I'm so excited to get into these.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think it should be said, though, that Superbad is not to be confused with the movie Super 8, the J.J. Abrams film about the goings-on of young people, similar to Superbad, only this Super 8's more supernatural and has kind of a mystery element to it. So, yeah, not Super 8.
And I guess it's also not to be confused with Supernatural, which you just said, which is a television show that was very popular and I think started around the same time.
Oh.
Yeah, good points. Should also, to depart from the name a little bit, should not be confused with Youth in Revolt, which is a movie from a few years after Superbad that also stars Michael Cera. And I don't know much about this movie, but I do remember from the time that it came out. I didn't see it, but I do remember there being an ad for it where there was just an image of Michael Cera in a fake mustache saying, "It's time to be bad."
Huh.
I could definitely understand why, we might confuse that with Superbad.
That would be confusing.
Yeah.
And in general, this is not to be confused with anything in what I refer to as the bad verse, which is like Bad Moms or Bad Santa, which I don't think is in the same universe as Bad Moms, but I like to think that it is.
I'd like that too, actually. That'd be cool.
Not bad, horrible bosses.
Yes.
Maybe that's an extension of that universe.
I was going to say, taking it a step further. I also think that we should not confuse Superbad with Superfly, which is the 1972 film directed by Gordon Parks Jr., starring Ron O'Neal, with an amazing soundtrack by the ineffable Curtis Mayfield. I would say that the movie that we're going to talk about today, some of the broader aesthetics of the film seem to reference this kind of 70s era a little bit.
They do, yeah.
Yes, but yeah, Superfly, not to be confused with Superbad.
And you were referring to the music in Superfly.
Correct.
And did you guys notice in the credits for Superbad, Bootsy Collins and the Superbad band?
I did notice that, yeah.
I didn't.
We'll probably unpack this a little more, but I was a little intrigued by the deliberate retroness of the soundtrack of Superbad. And coming off of having discussed Dazed and Confused a few episodes ago, I felt like there was a little bit of not so subtle homage to that movie in Superbad having such a retro soundtrack.
Right. It seems like it's just the soundtrack. There
Yeah.
isn't
aspects of the flow of the plot, but continue.
Yeah, I guess maybe so. Well,
Yeah.
on the subject of the flow of the plot, Superbad follows high school seniors Seth and Evan on the home stretch of their last year in school. They have been best friends for years, but are slated to attend different colleges, which provides for some latent friction between the two as word of a house party comes their way. And a chance pairing with his crush Jules in home ec fortuitously makes an overconfident Seth the purveyor of adult beverages. This kickstarts his and Evan's hopes for scoring with girls and finally being seen as cool. With the help of their buddy Fogel, with his newly minted fake ID in hand, the pair have a wild ride of a night involving cops with questionable moral compasses, beer in wholesale detergent jugs, and shared feelings about the tenuous future of their friendship. What's your guys' experience with seeing Superbad? I feel like this is like a modern classic of a film. But
Yeah.
how did you guys come to this movie?
So it's worth saying, too, that this two-shot is the first one we've had in a while where we've all seen the movies beforehand.
Yeah, we've all seen
Correct.
both of them.
Yeah. So this is a unanimous two-shot, as it were. So my prior experience of this movie was I saw it at, I think, the perfect age to see it. I was 15 at the time. And, well, funny enough, I mean, it's especially funny in hindsight. I saw this on network television. So there was
me too.
Yeah. In that sense, there were some things I didn't see about it in that initial viewing.
Thank you. I want to come back to that, but I'll let you keep going.
Yeah, so there were some things I didn't technically see that truly I think I only saw for the first time in this viewing. Things that get censored. Do you want me to say it?
No, I can say it if you want. You keep going.
We'll get into it, but yeah, so my experience of it was seeing it at the age of 15, and even in spite of those things that were censored for television, I still think the general aura and message of the movie hit me, and it hit me pretty hard. And I thought, on the one hand, this is not my life. I do not see myself getting into these circumstances. But on the other hand, there's something about the awkwardness of high school that this movie, I thought it just really nailed. And I think I was kind of impressed by how, for a movie that was marketed as really a party movie, that there was in my mind a lot more heart than I expected there to be in Superbad. And I still think that's true. I have a definitely more nuanced view of it now. That was my initial impression of the movie. That's what I came into this viewing with.
Totally. So Julian was saying that he had seen this on network television. And I am pretty sure I have also, before this past week, only ever saw this on television.
Wow.
And I know that because when I rewatched this, there was a very large part of this film that I have no memory of whatsoever.
Okay.
Because they cannot air it on television.
Awesome.
Which is the entire dick drawing subplot.
Oh my
I remember none of that. No memory whatsoever. Julian, you said you thought maybe it was censored. I think it was cut out completely from versions that I saw.
I think that's one of the hallmark moments of the film.
Yeah.
That's so interesting that you guys have this sort of censored experience with this film.
The last thing I wanted to say is you said you saw this movie, you think when you were 15. I was 15 when this came out.
Gotcha.
So I also probably saw it when I was 15, most likely, but not in the theater. Although it did come out, I think, 3 weeks after my 15th birthday.
Oh,
there
wow.
we go.
So I believe I was the only person of us in high school when this came out.
Yes,
Wow.
that would be true. Yeah, I have a rather unique experience with this movie. I have explained this to you guys before off mics. I saw a test screening of this movie in October of 2006 while I was a student at NYU. I was walking along Lafayette Street. Somebody literally handed me a flyer and asked if I had time the next day to see a test screening. I was like, absolutely.
You're like, I'm a
gonna do it.
film student. That's all I do.
Totally. Absolutely. I had no idea that I was going to be test screening literally a modern classic.
They don't put that on the flyer.
No, they didn't. And I can say that now, but I would have never actually said that then because I cannot lie. I was not buying what this movie was selling. I thought this movie was really choppy. I felt like it was indulging its actors so much, and it felt like it took forever for one scene to move to the next. I thought the dynamic between the guys and their female counterparts was painfully weak. Like, not their chemistry, but just like how they were written. I hated the ending. I wrote many, many negative things on the response card that I got. And I felt like I was the only one, actually, because the theater was like pretty rocking. I also remember two very specific things about this experience, which is I thought that the cop with the mustache had a funny laugh. And that the actor who played Seth was absolutely lights out, and that he would become a star once he was in the right movie. Because at the time, I was convinced this was not a good movie.
Not the right movie.
Yeah, this is not the right movie. What I will say, though, is that every time I've seen it since, I think this movie has gotten just a little bit funnier. And some, not all, but some of the emotional beats land a little better for me. And I am more convinced that my initial dislike of the movie was based on three things. The first of which is that, as you alluded to, I was in film school and I wanted every movie that I watched to change my life.
Sorry, it's not Kubrick's Superbad.
Exactly.
Well, there's that line at the beginning of the movie when
the
when
Coen
Seth and
brothers
Evan
were
are
not
talking
doing
about,
that.
Oh, yeah,
well,
exactly.
sorry, the Coen brothers aren't filming your porn or something.
Exactly.
Like that.
I would have probably eaten up a Coen Brothers Superbad.
Yeah.
But anyway, so is that I had not seen an Apatow movie before then either. They were his kind of brand was rather new at the time. So this was my first one of his films. And honestly, I think that this movie was at the very beginning of the trend of what became a very successful run of mid-aughts R-rated comedies.
Yeah.
And I don't think I had had enough exposure to them to accept some of the things that frustrated me in the narrative to enjoy what works so well in this movie otherwise. So this is probably maybe my fifth time watching it. Yeah, every time I watch it, it does get a little better.
I think that's a pretty good segue into the question that you posed leading up to this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't so clear at that time, but eventually we would kind of grow to see very particular characteristics in a lot of Apatow's films. You know, the kind of immature young men who are forced to grow up, and these movies also kind of dial up the sentimentality. There tends to be sort of like a deeper message about connection and friendship and that sort of thing. His movies are longer than most comedies. You know, there's usually sort of like hour and a half, maybe hour and 40 minutes. His movies go north of 2 hours oftentimes. There's also sort of like a rep company approach to how he makes his movies. There's a lot of the same actors in them.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know, there are a lot of things that we kind of associate with like the high school experience that is very different from the kind of more adult themes that Apatow's movies dig into. I'm just wondering if those hallmark traits like work in a high school setting.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. And I have to say that in general, a lot of Apatow doesn't really work for me.
Same.
I have kind of an aversion to that particular style of, like you said, like mid-aughts R-rated comedies. Like I was a teen girl and then young woman, and Apatow's kind of heyday. And a lot of his movies, as you said, do focus on like immature young men that like I couldn't really relate to.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
just
totally
found
get that.
kind of obnoxious in a lot of Apatow movies. I'm sorry to the Apatow stans out there.
Yeah, because there are many of them.
Yeah, don't at me.
Yeah.
But I actually think that this movie is my favorite of that brand, partially because they have an excuse to be immature because they're like 17.
Exactly.
So
Same.
I can give them like more grace. They're allowed to, like, they are of the perfect age to be working through this. Men who are like in their 20s and up, going like acting like having these same behaviors
40-year-old versions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is much more frustrating to me.
Or like the other guys in 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that perspective. And I think that, you know, when I saw Superbad at 15, it was not only the time when I saw Superbad, but I had a little bit of an Apatow run that year. I think there was just a feeling of, that I was, you know, I was of age enough to kind of get what was going on in these movies, even if it's not, you know, my life as I live it. And B, a lot of them just happened to be on TV at the right times. So I just, you know, channel surfed onto things like Forgetting Sarah Marshall and Get Him to the Greek. And I think the 40-Year-Old Virgin too.
I also wanted to say, because I was just quickly scrolling through Apatow's like kind of production credits, because I know I don't care for many of the ones he's directed. But have you guys seen Popstar?
Yes.
That I think is another one that I actually do think is very funny.
That's a solid
and very
mockumentary.
good.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I've heard a lot of good
Yeah,
things though.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would recommend that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually think this is, you know, top to bottom, start to finish, probably my favorite of Apatow's movies. It's very aware that this is a movie about people in high school and that it's going to be watched by younger teenagers.
Yes.
Even if
Yeah.
it's an R-rated comedy, the water's pouring through the dam in terms of like censorship control. Like kids are going to be able to see what they want to see. And so this movie was seen by a lot of kids who are maybe in the more of the like 13 to 15 demo,
Yeah.
you know? And so as a result, there's a little bit of like a go for broke mentality
Yeah.
with the humor that I think is very appealing to younger people.
Yeah, and it's very interesting that you mentioned that too, because the inception of the concept of this movie came from co-writers Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg when they were that age.
Yeah.
When they were even younger than high school. They were 13 years old.
Yeah.
When they had the idea.
Which it's funny because in some ways I think it serves the story well. And then in
Yeah.
other ways I feel like it
Stunts the
stunts
story.
it. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
I mean, I dug up, so Mark Maron had the two of them on as guests like 10 years ago to promote This Is the End. And the two of them had said themselves that when they initially wrote the movie, of course, there was a lot of evolution of it before it reached the version that you see on screen. But yeah, that they had stuck to this concept for years and years and years. It was the passion project. I think that was really the thing that got them into the film industry, you know, if not in a career sense, just in a passion sense.
Yeah, and I think the idea was that Seth Rogen was going to play Seth
Right.
as well.
Yeah,
But he
and-
aged out of it.
He aged out of it. I mean, not by very much. I mean, I think he was only like 25 when the movie came out, and Jonah Hill is like a year or two younger.
Absolutely.
Than him.
You know, and it's funny, Jonah Hill, there's something about his energy, his kind of freneticness that I
Yeah.
think just speaks speaks to somebody who is rather immature and could be 17, 18. I stand by what I thought when I first saw this. He is flat out hilarious. He's such a standout.
See, for me, I think I swung a bit the other way, where I don't disagree that Seth as a character is certainly a highlight of the movie, but I think that I resonate personally quite a bit more with Evan, the Michael Cera character.
I want to get into this.
It's not a one-to-one comparison, but I see more of myself in that character than I do in Seth. He's the one who really seems to be the most competent of that friend group, the one who actually seems to have a little more sway. He's not as mouthy as Seth is. I think that Seth in a lot of ways is mostly talk, but that Evan is more action.
See, I totally agree with you. I'd much rather be friends with Evan, but I'd much rather watch a movie with Seth.
Fair point. Yeah. Or aside from the two of them, would you much rather watch Fogel instead?
Interesting, yeah. Now, that was his very first movie, right? I know Jonah Hill was a side player in some of the other Apatow things before this.
But Christopher Mintz-Plasse, this was the very first thing he was in ever.
Yeah. And he was pretty young. I think he was 16 or 17, maybe.
Yeah, and that his mom had to be on set for his sex scene.
Yes, I do remember hearing that.
Yeah, but also, I feel like that role for him is a little bit like Wooderson for Matthew McConaughey in Dazed and Confused, in that, so Matthew McConaughey has gone on to do things that I think many people would say are even better than Wooderson, that are just totally iconic performances in their own right. But people are never going to forget Wooderson. And I think that Fogel/McLovin for Christopher Mintz-Plasse, this is the first role, and this is the role for
I was
him.
going to say, unfortunately, I don't really know if he's had, even though he's been in other things,
right,
he's never really had even anything close in the kind of public's consciousness quite like McLovin.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know how big of a player Fish Legs is and How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah, not really.
I
feel like maybe
he was in Role Models, wasn't he?
He was in Kick-Ass as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Which is a movie I feel like I should remember more than I do, not just in the sense of my own memory, but I feel like that movie, it aimed for more memorability than it has.
Right. I would agree with you, though.
Yeah.
Seth I don't find him to be somebody who I would necessarily want to be friends with.
Absolutely not. As I had mentioned to you guys before, it's been a long time since I've seen this movie, at least 10 years. And there were a few things, a lot that I didn't remember about it, or a lot that I apparently blacked out, or the television blacked out for me. But one of the things I didn't remember is that Seth, in my opinion, is not a good friend, at least in the time that we see him. And he's mean. He's mean to people.
He's very mean.
At least in the actions that we see. And people are also mean to him. So I understand this cycle, but ultimately I don't think he's a very good friend. And I wonder if he's kind of always been like this. And I think that Evan alludes to that at times, where he says that I forget the exact quote, but Evan at one moment does say that Seth has always kind of treated him like this and held him back. So how do we feel about the fact that I think at least, do you guys think that Seth is a good friend? Do you think it's the stress of this night and their futures, their looming futures, and the fact that they're going to be torn apart, is that getting to him? Is that bringing out an ugly side of him? Or is he just maybe not a good friend?
Let me ask you guys, do you guys have a Seth to your Evan in your lives?
Yes.
I have too.
Yeah.
I've had Seths in my life and in my friend group, but not in the way that it's to my Evan. No best friends that I've had in my life have really been like this.
Gotcha.
But I've had a Seth in my larger friend group in plenty of times in my life.
Cool.
Yeah. So I did have a friend who I would consider to have been the Seth to my Evan. The operative word being had a friend. It's not someone who's in my life anymore. Perhaps crucially, I didn't get that vibe from him initially. It was kind of, once we became comfortable with each other, that was a more... a side of him that came out more, and to make the comparison a little stronger, when we went our separate ways for college, initially we were at separate schools, and then after I had been at Sarah Lawrence for about a year, this particular friend told me that he was transferring there, and I was just kind of I did not have the heart to say it, but I was kind of I thought the friendship was stronger for us not being in the same place.
That
Yeah.
makes sense. My relationship with the Seths I've had in my life, I think, would maybe be different than a man's relationship with the Seths I've had in their life, because the person that I think of that's probably closest to Seth is a friend I had in college who also like sexualized me a lot, you know, and there's a very different dynamic there as well. So like he was still a good friend of mine and a good friend in general, but he wasn't someone that I really wanted to maintain a long-lasting friendship with, and he's not someone I've seen since my best friend's wedding years ago.
It's funny. It's a very real experience for a lot of people that you make certain connections with people in life, and then as you grow up, you start to get a little more hip to their ways. They start to get a little bit more entrenched.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, you know, people act this way because they're incredibly insecure themselves, or they want to project certain things on you, or they expect certain things out of you that you would never expect of them because you have very different perspectives on like what friendship should mean and what you should get out of friendship.
Yeah.
And so finding yourself in a situation how Evan finds for himself with Seth, I think is oddly very relatable.
Totally.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I was thinking about just the fact that they have been friends for a long time since they were quite young. And I do think these bonds that you make when you are really young, like those friendships, a lot of times, like they become your support system. And sometimes you start to grow away from those people, but oftentimes they're your support system through middle school and high school. Like, and it's difficult to lose that if they are best friends, kind of for better or for worse. And I feel like Evan's at a place in his life when he's like, this is my best friend. And there's nothing I can really do about that.
Yeah. I do like in some ways the very end of this movie. One of the things that it casually drops is that it's very possible that they're never going to be friends the way that they used to be.
Yeah.
With that final shot where
Escalator?
where Seth and Jules next to him are going down the escalator, and he has one last exchange of eye contact with Evan.
Yeah.
Which I think when I first saw the movie, I found honestly quite touching, that last scene. That was where the movie had heart that I didn't expect it to.
It's a nice way to present that type of distancing, and that it's actually probably better for them. You know?
Yeah.
And Seth does have this one big moment where he does save Evan from the cop raid. They've had their problems throughout the night, but like Seth is going to be there when it counts.
Yeah.
But does that do enough?
No.
No, well, I think maybe, part of the thinking there on Seth's end is not simply that he's doing a noble act. It's more like, I need you. You're my lifeline.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah, I mean, to make connections to our prior conversations, maybe it's kind of like Chief to McMurphy in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Maybe it's kind of like Sal to Sonny in Dog Day Afternoon. That there's like this person who maybe on the surface level has their own sort of strengths or like social moxie or whatever, but really there's some kind of weak inside. They need someone to guide them.
Right. Or like an emotional core, something that they
Right.
can sort of...
A North Star.
Exactly, a North Star,
Yeah.
or something they can project onto. Yeah, because the movie, I think, tries to position it as some act of altruism, but you clearly see that nothing happens to the kids.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I know that that's not what he knows. Like, he doesn't know that kids are not really going to get in trouble.
Not with these cops.
Right. Definitely not with these cops.
Yeah.
But this movie had a long gestation period.
Yeah.
This seems sort of like a vestigial part from like the 15 to 16 year old origins. Like, I don't really see it one way or the other. It's just something that happens in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the more, I guess, cliche, kind of treacly moments that you have in this narrative. In a movie that is otherwise full of some things that are a lot grittier than I remembered. And honestly, like on this viewing, the way that my impression of Superbad changed is that it's a lot harsher than I remembered. And by extension, I think if you changed some little things about the tone of this movie at certain points, this could be seen not as like the seminal party night, but as like the seminal traumatizing night of a lot of these teenagers' lives.
Yeah, because everybody has something kind of weird or crazy happen to them.
Yeah, to varying degrees. But like when you look at some of the stuff that happens to Seth specifically, like he gets hit by a car twice.
Yes.
He gets a baseball bat thrown at him. And then by the end, he's blackout drunk.
Yeah, and he nearly gets like really beat up at that first party.
Right.
Yes, that's true.
He nearly gets killed by the cops.
And
Yes.
even after they hit him with his car, then they're trying to like frame him.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was another thing I didn't really remember from my first experiences with the movie. That's a moment where I feel like Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg were aiming for some bigger world commentary than in many other parts of the movie.
Yeah, I think as we talk more about Booksmart, I think I'd love to come back to that a little bit because the stuff with the cops, even though I don't think is aged particularly well, it just tickles my funny bone.
Yeah, I think
I
it's
think
actually fine. I think
think
it's mostly very funny just because the two of them are so compelling.
So funny. I mean, what is it, Officer Slater and Officer Mike? I could also watch a movie that's just entirely about them.
Yeah.
While they are cops misbehaving. I mean, Bill Hader and Seth Rogen. I mean, a wonderful pairing of
Definitely.
comedic minds.
I like the detail to that early in the movie. You have Seth the character running to catch up with Evan in one scene and just struggling to keep at a steady pace. And then you have Seth Rogen as a cop following Evan as he runs, and then
He's the fastest kid alive.
and then also struggling to keep up. I thought that those, like the cop characters, I mean, they are the strongest examples. They're not the only ones, but they're the strongest examples in Superbad of something we see in both that and Booksmart, which is these emotionally stunted adults being in the company of the main characters. I think that with the cops in Superbad, there's certainly a cautionary tale element to it.
Yeah.
Because the cops eventually admit to Fogel that they hated cops when they were their age, and they saw a bit of themselves in him.
So I think that is kind of the skeleton key of their whole presence in the movie.
Yeah.
And we've alluded to this, I think, in other films that we've talked about too, maybe most notably something like Dazed and Confused, where you see the shadow that your high school past casts on you. And that even though these guys have become cops, there is something about them that just never wanted to grow up.
Oh, yeah.
And high school in some way never really leaves you. I think that's one of the things that this movie, I think, kind of alludes to with those characters.
Yeah, high school never ends, as Bowling for Soup said.
That's right.
And those cops are not alone in Superbad. I mean, there's also Francis, who's the guy that Joe Lo plays, who bumps into Seth with his car. And I have to say, that scene, like, I only noticed it this time. That looks like it hurt.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like the way that he gets hit by the car there. But yeah, Francis, that character, another emotionally stunted adult who has a consequential plot ramification. The detail I always liked about that character is when he has Seth and Evan in the car, and he's like trying to be friendly with them. He's like, "You guys on MySpace?"
I know. That's a nice little
and they're both
detail
like,
there.
"Dude, what the fuck?"
I also
I just have to say, though, 2007, MySpace was still happening.
still happening.
Oh yeah, but it's not about it being MySpace. It's not that it's dated.
It's just the
like,
ages. Like,
it's
Yeah,
him
of
like
course.
trying to a little too hard to be friendly.
Right. I also love that line where he goes like, "I've got a warrant out for a nonviolent crime." Like the way he delivers that is really great. I gotta say too, they have so many wonderful, talented people in this movie delivering really funny lines that at some point just the kind of wave just washes over me.
And everyone is, I think, so well cast, even in these really minor parts, like Kevin Corrigan, who who is the guy that's actually throwing the party that they then go to with Joe Trulio's driver.
That he gets kicked out of.
Violently. But like Kevin Corrigan is terrifying.
Yeah. He's played a lot of guys.
He's good at that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Speaking of bit parts, Dave Franco.
Oh, amazing.
So what's
like, don't piss your pants again. That was like 8 years ago. Well, people don't forget.
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
a really
soccer, Greg.
But yeah, I remember I often mention WTF with Mark Maron, but that when Dave Franco,
No, you don't say.
Dave.
I don't have a running count of that going.
I could do it. I would lose count pretty quickly. But
sorry. Okay, so
but
Dave Franco.
Dave Franco was on the show like a year ago and was talking about how that bit part was like, I guess maybe for him, even though it doesn't have the same screen time, it's kind of like, the key that Wooderson was for Matthew McConaughey, that it was like, as they say in the movie, people don't forget.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then you've got in 21 Jump Street, he and Jonah Hill
Yeah.
are reuniting there. I know that I think they've done several things since then, but I think that's another one that's another high school movie.
Right.
I have one more bit part that
I know who you're going to say.
which I didn't recognize at first, but David Krumholtz is
Yeah.
in this movie.
He is. He's
wait.
one of the guys in the room who's trying to coerce Evan into singing.
Oh, awesome. Yes, yeah.
His eyes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have to say too, like that, from my first viewing, there were maybe two scenes that stuck with me the most, and that was one of them.
Right.
Because it's just like, that's one moment where, Evan is like the cool, calm, and collected friend of the group for much of the movie, but that's one moment where he's put on the spot. He has to face embarrassment. And just the song that comes to him out of all things is "These Eyes" by the Guess Who.
That's a very Canadian band.
Yeah.
Another callback to the fact that the
yeah,
writers
yeah.
are Canadian.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I grew up listening to a lot of music from the 60s and 70s. So
Yeah.
if somebody were to put me on the spot like that, I might choose a song like "These Eyes." Although that song's got quite a bit of range, so I don't know.
Even Michael Cera comes to grips with that in
Yeah.
the scene.
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite well. But
Yeah.
okay, I gotta say, Jonah Hill being such a turned up presence, I am like in the minority on this because I know that people love their chemistry in this movie. But instead of Michael Cera, I've always wanted Jesse Eisenberg to be the Evan character.
Interesting.
And
It's a decent alternate
It's
cast.
interesting because Jesse Eisenberg ended up becoming the lead in another Greg Mottola movie,
Adventureland.
in Adventureland, and he kind of has a similar personality to Michael Cera. But I think a little better that somebody like Jesse Eisenberg or a character that he would have more facility playing would be friends with Jonah Hill. And it's kind of always gnawed at me. And I know I'm in the minority. I know that people love Michael Cera in this movie, but I could really take or leave his performance,
Yeah.
except for his song choice.
Of
These Eyes
course.
is great. Love it.
Yeah.
Great song choice.
Yeah, I kind of, to shift gears a bit, I kind of want to, we were talking a bit about the plot machinations of Superbad before, and I was particularly interested in that this time. This may sound like a strained comparison, but hear me out.
Okay.
That's becoming one of my new things on
Yeah.
this podcast.
yeah. Strain comparison. Hear
There
me
were
out.
some plot machinations that kind of made me think of Pulp Fiction, where there's they're kind of showing the underbelly side of an event that can be hyped up, glorified in people's minds. They're not showing much of the party. They're showing buying the liquor. But also that there's a lot of randomness that leads to consequential plot points in Superbad, where they get in Joe Lo Truglio's car because he hits Seth. Or that, they don't know that they're going to this party in the middle of the movie and it becomes a whole climax of its own. I mean, maybe that's less random, but there was a flow to the plot that kind of made me think of a movie like Pulp Fiction, or also like After Hours, the Scorsese movie from the mid-1980s.
Which I haven't seen, but I know you guys have really liked.
Really, really good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, where Griffin Dunn just kind of ends up serendipitously in this whole cascade of events. So that was something, that was part of what added maybe to the grittiness, the realism of Superbad for me this time.
It's just projecting Pulp Fiction on.
Well, but not specifically that I'm thinking of Pulp Fiction as a movie all the time, but there's a kind of an aura in the flow of the plot that reminded me of it. And also maybe, there's kind of a MacGuffin too. There's the briefcase in Pulp Fiction. There's the alcohol in Superbad.
Who in God's name at Jules's party is going to drink alcohol
Out
out
of-
of a detergent
Yeah,
bottle?
there's no way. All he did was rinse it. I don't even know if he rinsed it. He just poured it out. You are going to poison people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Straight up. That's going to be like one of those...
That's an alternate ending to this movie.
Yeah.
Is that everybody, it's like we're going back to Heather's, like the entire
Yeah.
school kills themselves from drinking alcohol mixed with laundry detergent.
I kind of love
hangover
it.
cures.
I actually really love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, another thing, another point that struck me as a random change of plot in, kind of in the Pulp Fiction vein was when there's that guy causing the disturbance at the bar, who beats
who
up.
just comes along for the ride.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
just comes along
apparently
for the ride.
after getting punched or getting knocked out once is good for the rest of the night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do feel like it's becoming a theme that we reference or compare movies to Pulp Fiction that, in my opinion, are not that they don't have that much in common with Pulp Fiction. But I still see your point.
Yeah, actually, to make another connection that I can definitely justify with a little more strength.
Okay.
I was, not about high school movies, but thinking about the dynamic of Evan, Seth, and Fogel. I was thinking a lot about The Big Lebowski. There's definitely a dude Walter Donnie dynamic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
There
totally.
definitely is.
Of the three of them.
Yeah.
Although I think Fogel gets more spotlight than Donnie does.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely detected that sort of dynamic between them. And we haven't talked that much about Fogel yet, but I have to say this viewing that, I mean, Fogel is an iconic character. Of course, chicka, chicka, yeah. But I thought Christopher Mintz-Plasse, his performance is really good in this movie.
Oh, it's quite good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's excellent.
Yeah, I thought he was the perfect age to play that part at the time.
Because
And-
he feels a little younger than them, even though I think they're all meant to be the same age because they're all going to college together.
Right.
He feels even more stunted, I think, than the other two. And the fact that he, as an actor, is a little bit younger than the other two, I think plays into that very well.
Yeah, one little moment I really enjoyed is there's a moment like very early in the movie where Seth yells at him and you can see him lurch back like he's felt the volume of Seth's voice at him, and I feel like
I think I know that scene.
Yeah.
they're in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the least likable that Seth ever is in the movie.
Yeah, that's another
Well,
one of those examples of just Seth being like mean to
very
his
mean.
friends.
He's so outwardly mean to Fogel, but I think he sees a lot more of himself in Fogel than he's willing to admit.
Sure.
In terms of the awkwardness, in terms of his struggles to interact with a girl he likes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like the detail that Fogel is going to Dartmouth with Evan. That it was honestly was something I forgot from the first time, which shows you that in spite of his awkwardness, I mean, he's got a brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That he really, in that way, I think he actually has something over Seth that maybe Seth is kind of jealous of.
Of course.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I would agree. I
Yeah.
would agree. This is also Emma Stone's very first movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2-time Best Actress winner Emma Stone. Everyone.
Yeah. She's very winning in the film. I think
Yeah.
she's, as a presence, I think is rather nice. I think that this movie does not do a particularly good job of creating a dynamic between the guys and the girls. I've always just felt like that's one of the weak points of the film.
I think I have a small counter argument to make for Evan and Becca. There are things about their rapport that I actually liked, but first to talk about Jules. I mean, Emma Stone is less present in this movie than I had remembered. I had kind of in my mind, I think she had a bigger part than she actually does. I think that like Jules individually as a person, I like a lot. I always liked the twist that she doesn't actually drink at the party, that, she's just buying alcohol for her friends. I thought that was a very humanizing detail. But then watching it this time with all of the education that I've had about consent and boundaries in the years leading up to this, I thought like Seth totally fucks up with her.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And
sure.
she absolutely has the right to cast him off if she sees fit.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, 100%. And I think that they do a relatively nice job of making him seem earnest in
Yeah.
the moment.
He like misreads her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty severely.
I'm with you. I've always felt that was a little strained.
Yeah.
It seemed a little too convenient that she would show up the next day at the mall and be like, you want to come help me find, makeup?
Cover up.
Yeah.
Yeah, cover up.
Which is, I've never heard a person in real life refer to concealer as cover up, but
Yeah.
I was
whatever.
about to call it concealer, and then I was like, is that the right word?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it feels a little too convenient. And I remember noting too, like when Seth falls forward and hits her in the face, I didn't see it until 5 years after it came out, but I do remember the advertising when it came out. And that was kind of played for laughs in the advertising. But it's really like, when you look at it objectively, that's like a harsh moment too. A lot of the moments that were kind of played for laughs in the advertising are like pretty rough things in the movie itself.
Can I
I think you said about traumatic. I would agree. Go for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the read that maybe I had in 2007 and that a lot of people had was that those were played for laughs.
Yeah.
Even at that time.
Exactly.
Not just in the advertising, but also that was the intention in the film.
Yeah.
And it's aged a little bit differently.
That scene was also in the test screening, I remember. And I remember thinking that it was actually kind of original, that I didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, part of the why people, I think, respond maybe with some nervous laughter from it,
Yeah.
or like full out laughter, thinking it's hilarious that somebody falls and hits somebody in the head. I can see how maybe that scene, because it's so shocking, could make it into the movie and have a place. But I think it's just one of many details that I feel like her character is not very well developed. I think the very last note with her and also with Becca Becca a little less so, but with her feels very forced. And so I've kind of always wanted a little bit more out of or more for those two characters, Becca and Jules.
What I'll say about Jules is that there's a line kind of early on where they say that she got hot pretty recently and that she maybe doesn't know it yet, and that maybe that's why Seth has a chance with her, is that she doesn't know how hot she is. And I think that that's kind of important. And that she's like maybe had this glow up and like, you know, maybe took off her glasses and, you know, did the she's all that or whatever. So I think there is, I mean, I think it's clear throughout the film that she cares for Seth in some way, whether that's romantic or just platonic. That's, I think, up in the air. By the end, it seems like she is open potentially to exploring some sort of romance, and whether or not that's kind of shoehorned into the movie, like maybe it is, but in that scene where he does cross that boundary, what she says is like, not like this, not I'm not interested. But that she understands that if they were to take that step, if she was open to that, this is not the scenario in which to do it. Because she's sober and he's clearly drunk.
Which is a very mature thing to say in the moment.
And is interesting as a counter to, as you've kind of pointed out, the Evan and Becca dynamic, which also is dealing with like one of them being sober, one of them being intoxicated, or one of them being really intoxicated and one slightly less intoxicated. It's in counter, I think, to the other two.
And that was where I had a lot of respect for Evan as a character, that he has the wherewithal to stop this, you know, as much as he is into her, he has the wherewithal to stop this interaction before it gets out of hand. There were some things about Evan and Becca as a couple where, even if Becca is underwritten to a degree, there were some things about them I thought, like, wait, this is actually kind of sweet about those two. Where
a lot of their direct interactions, I think, can be pretty sweet.
But also if you take it like out of that particular context, when, you know, they are starting to hook up and Becca's admitting to him she's like had her eye on him for such a long time. Like, if you take
that's what drew me out of it.
Oh, really?
I'm like, dynamics in high school, like, he's gonna know. Someone's gonna tell him. Before that night, before she's super drunk, dude.
But I think
you have a shot with Becca. Like, that would happen.
As much as people could know that, though, they're probably very afraid to do anything about it in the build up, though. But I thought it was like, you know, the sweet thing was that, like, this Michael Cera character, Evan, he's like not someone who like makes a big deal out of himself. He doesn't like dress fancy or anything. He goes through most of the movie wearing a hoodie. And I thought it's just, you know, that someone could, you know, see a person like that and, you know, feel like quite an honest, sincere attraction to him. I thought that was actually a pretty sweet detail. I mean, yes. I just feel like the movie does not give you enough with either pair ahead of time to make what happens later in the film feel more realistic. I would have loved for there to be a little bit more development. Like, the way that Seth learns that she has an older brother, to me, that's disqualifying. It takes me right out of the movie. Like, if he is now just first learning that she has an older brother, they don't know each other at all. I don't know. To me, that's like one of those things that just jumps out. And then I know it has to be presented in the movie because he's like, if she had an older brother, she would have asked him, but she asked me for the alcohol. And so for the story and for his excitement to grow, that detail has to be there. But like, again, I pour cold water on this movie all the time. A few of the emotional things work, but most of them don't. Interesting.
But that's kind of where it sits for me. Like,
quickly before we completely transition from Superbad, I just had a list of a few lines that I appreciated particularly in the movie.
Yes, go for it.
I mean, some of these we've mentioned already, but there was one, I mean, as much as it happens in a very crass moment, I was laughing so hard at it, which is actually in a scene we were just discussing when Evan and Becca start hooking up, and then she says to him something like, "You have a really smooth cock," and then he goes, Thank you. You'd have a smooth one too if you had one.
Very like nervous energy. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like, okay. I guess I'm losing my virginity right now. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
But so that was what I thought. That line was hysterical. I thought too, like one detail I liked about their dynamic was that there's all these moments where like he makes a little mistake with her that could have in another movie been just completely ruined the relationship. But then she's like, no, it's fine. I get it. Like, yeah, you had bad phone reception, whatever. But then the other line,
I don't like that scene.
Oh, really?
I don't. That scene bugs me every time.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
You can totally love it. I'm always the one who the party pooper on this movie in every conversation I have. So anyway, continue though.
And the last line that I thought that actually kind of touched me from the movie was it happens in the last sequence. It's before Becca and Jules show up, but when Seth and Evan are at the mall looking at pants, and then Seth asks, how do these look? And then Evan says something to the effect of, I don't know, I don't give a fuck how pants look, which I thought was like, it's funny, but honestly kind of relatable.
Oh, sure.
Like, I like that detail about his character.
Sure.
I find that relatable, quite frankly.
Were there any lines that stick out for you?
I don't know, man. I mean, I land somewhere, I think, between the two of you in this movie, and I expected to. I think I knew both of your like general impressions of this movie. Personally, for me, I was like not necessarily super excited to rewatch this movie for the first time in 10 years. And I'd say in the first 15 or 20 minutes, I was like, oh no. I was like, this is not going to go well for me. Like, I'm not going to enjoy this. I do think it picks up for me. And ultimately, I was like, yeah, this is enjoyable. I will probably, though, never watch this again.
Oh,
Got
wow.
it.
I don't see why I would, honestly. I think there are a lot of other movies that I'd rather watch than Superbad.
Believe me, I'm mostly with you on that. and I've seen this movie for whatever reason many times. I think this is just an inescapable movie for a lot of people our age.
Yeah.
It's just like people love it.
Totally.
This is a small detail. It gets me every time I've seen this movie. In two different scenarios, there is a slow motion silent moment where Jonah Hill is staring at Fogel doing something and is just saying, what the fuck? And it gets me every time.
Yeah, when he shows up in the vest.
In the vest, yes. And he's
I
kind of
think he
gives him
looks
the
great
smile.
in the vest.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah. I think it doesn't look bad too, but the act of him posturing is always what hit me more saliently there.
Right. I would agree, though. He does not look that bad. I think he does look older.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was his goal.
That was his
ultimately.
goal. So mission accomplished.
One last note. I promise this is the last thing, but I said there was a second scene in this movie that was my favorite from the first viewing, and that is when Seth goes into the liquor store, the first one, and has those three different fantasies of what could go wrong there.
Oh, yeah.
That scene I thought was like one of the best in the movie. I still think it is. That was what told me this movie is great cinematically. That really hit the nail on the head for me.
I love that one where it's like, what does he say? He goes like, enjoy your remaining years. She's like, have a nice time fucking Jules. Or whatever. Yeah.
The one I always found the most funny was definitely the darkest one too, where like
The cop or whatever.
You know, someone slashes him with a broken bottle.
Oh, yeah.
And this is just like his fantasy of the worst thing that could happen in this scenario.
Yeah.
And as ridiculous as it is, I feel like that is a pretty humanizing detail.
Oh, of
Totally,
course.
because people always say, what's the worst that can go wrong? And it's like, well, that.
Yeah.
I also have to say, anytime I hear Van Halen in a movie, I'm usually pretty okay for it. And this movie has a pretty nice moment with the song Panama.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I've seen this movie a number of times, and it does get better for me every time, but not because I think it's necessarily a well-made movie. I think it has performances, it has certain line readings that really do just tickle my funny bone.
Totally.
And so, I would recommend it with several reservations.
Yeah.
Sure.
I honestly have some reservations about it too, but I still think it is a great movie, worth its reputation. And there's, it's kind of in a league of its own. Or is it?
Or is it? I know.
Oh.
Yes, because 12 years later, we got a movie that was quite similar, I think.
Yeah. Similar in a lot of ways. Similar thematically, similar in plot, similar in that one of the main characters from Superbad is related to one of the main characters from our next movie, which is Booksmart.
Yeah, quite directly related, in fact.
Yeah,
Quite directly.
Yeah. We should say Booksmart is not to be confused with the movie Book Club that stars Candice Bergen, Jane Fonda, Diane Keaton. Mary Steenburgen, right? That's how you
Yeah,
pronounce
that's
her
how
name?
I think that's how I say it.
It's not book club.
Yeah, we should also clarify this is not to be confused with Street Smart, 1987 film directed by Jerry Schatzberg, starring Christopher Reeve, late great Superman actor,
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman, and a couple of others.
Yeah, I think that was one of his, by his, I mean Morgan Freeman's breakout roles. I think it was a movie that kind of slowly got him on a path towards
Yeah.
the career we know, he's had since. Yeah.
And should also clarify that Booksmart is not to be confused with Green Book, a movie
Yeah,
we have
which we've
discussed
talked
on this
before.
podcast
Yeah.
before, and was released shortly before Booksmart too.
That's true.
importantly.
Yeah.
About very different things.
Yeah. I would say we should not confuse this movie with either the TV show or the film adaptation of Get Smart.
That's true.
Yes, about a bumbling secret agent. Created, by the way, by Mel Brooks and Buck
cool.
Henry.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
Get Smart. It is Booksmart.
And we should not get smart confused with Get Shorty, which I always do.
Really?
Always.
Good
Just
point.
because of the title.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. I could see that.
All right, we're
But-
really diverting. We're talking
Yes.
Booksmart.
Yes.
We were
Right.
talking about Booksmart, the 2019 film directed by Olivia Wilde, starring Beanie Feldstein and Caitlin Dever.
Yes.
And yes, a very notable entry in the canon of high school buddy comedies.
So in this film, as we said, this is a buddy comedy set in a high school starring Caitlin Dever and Beanie Feldstein as lifelong best friends Amy and Molly. And these two are very book smart. They've dedicated their time in high school towards their studies in hopes of attending prestigious Ivy League schools that are going to kickstart their impossibly bright futures. To achieve this goal, they've generally avoided distractions, parties, and larger social circles. They're pretty much just interacting with each other. However, on their last day of school, they discover that many of their classmates manage to balance both of these things, socializing and school, and many people who they assume to be slackers are off to Ivies as well. One classmate who failed the 7th grade twice is off to code at Google.
Yes.
So, desperate to correct their mistakes and finally experience the wild side of high school before it's over, Amy and Molly agree to attend the hottest grad party of the night before their high school graduation. But their journey to this party runs into a few speed bumps and a few other parties. And once they arrive, even then, the party may not fully live up to their fantasies. So, I guess we'll see if their friendship is strong enough to withstand this drama right at the end of high school. And will they finally have these social experiences that they've missed out on?
God, these movies, when you talk about them that way, sound so similar. My
Yeah,
God.
absolutely.
Yeah.
If
so-
you break it down just to the overall plot, and I think the dynamic between the two main characters, there are so many similarities just on the surface there. And then there are a lot of, which I have a list that maybe we can go through later, a lot of very specific moments that are very clearly references to Superbad.
Yes.
Yeah.
May I begin this with a fun fact?
Absolutely.
that?
This movie, Booksmart, was released on the very day that I graduated from college.
Ah,
Oh,
that's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Wrong school level, but still.
Still.
It was also one of the first movies that I saw after graduating. It was about a week later that I saw it. I thought it was an uproariously funny movie. I saw it in the theater with a very packed audience, and there were just there were like a lot of big belly laughs in this movie. I think there still are.
Yeah.
But what about you two?
I have also a very interesting experience first seeing this movie. It was quite memorable. My wife, Elizabeth, was the dance captain for the latest Broadway revival of Hello, Dolly. It featured Beanie Feldstein as the character of Minnie Fay. By the way, Beanie Feldstein, I've had a few opportunities to make small talk with her. Lovely person, very cool. We are very pro Beanie in our house.
Yes. We're a pro
and
Beanie podcast.
No bad words spoken about her around these parts.
No rain doth fall on Beanie.
No. Anyway, but Beanie and I think the distributors of the film, they organized like a viewing party for Booksmart. I think it was about 2 or 3 months before it was widely released. Beanie was there, Caitlin Dever was there, Noah Galvin was there, and they were presenting it. This movie absolutely crushed in the theater.
Yeah.
It was rocking. I also remember just being genuinely very impressed with it. It was quite the opposite response that I had to my preview screening of Superbad. I will say, though, I did see this movie again during the pandemic. I still thought this movie was quite entertaining and winning, but I did not like it nearly as much seeing it the second time. And I was a little bit surprised, actually, by the drop-off. So I was excited to see this a third time just to see if maybe that was going to stabilize it for me or if it was going to deepen my experience watching it one way or the other.
Right.
Yeah. I don't have a clear memory of seeing this. I mean, I don't have the brain that either of you do, particularly Julian, of like having distinct memories of when I see things. Like, I've seen this movie before, and I believe I saw it the year it came out. I may or may not have seen it in theaters. I do not remember. I had a friend, my friend Emily, when I used to teach middle school, I think this was a movie that she had told me about and that we were both really excited about because I think she and I bonded over the fact that we probably had some similarities to these main characters.
Oh, cool.
And so I think we were very excited about finally kind of seeing that particular brand of representation in a big mainstream comedy.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's really cool. Okay, so I guess one way to start getting into this a little bit from my perspective is I read a couple quotes actually from Olivia Wilde, and she was talking to somebody for Vanity Fair. She was talking about how she was kind of hoping that this movie would be like the training day of high school movies. Have you guys seen Training Day?
No. And so you sent this question, and I was like, I don't know what this means. And I think you're not entirely sure what she means by it either. I have no idea because I haven't seen this movie.
Kind of don't. I have some theories, and actually one of them is not a particularly charitable one. By the way, I'm happy to talk about Training Day whenever we want.
Okay.
Yeah, Training Day is fantastic.
I haven't seen it, but I have gotten the vibe of some things that happen in it. I think I have a sense of how it goes.
Yes, I have a lot of thoughts about what that might mean. And I was kind of drawn to it a little bit because I am interested sometimes when a filmmaker says something like that, like they're trying to put a spin, I guess, on the movie. When you guys were watching it, was there any reference point that you felt like this movie was trying to speak to, and why is it Superbad?
Yeah.
Sorry, it could be something else, but I'm curious.
Well, I can't very clearly remember, but I vaguely remember around the time that Booksmart was out in theaters, I think scrolling past an article somewhere on social media where Olivia Wilde was actually expressing disdain for that comparison to Superbad. Maybe that it kind of hampers the way that people understand Booksmart, it reduces it. To my understanding, from what little I could find out about the writing of this movie, it's not necessarily that Superbad was meant to be a specific influence on it. It's more just this is a spin on a similar premise that happens to have female leads, and this is just kind of showing a different perspective of the same kind of trappings.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I really want to be able to talk about Booksmart as Booksmart.
Yeah.
But I do have a list of things that I find it kind of silly, honestly, to hear you say that Olivia Wilde doesn't like that comparison, because I have a list of things that are one-to-ones in my opinion.
Yeah.
And kind of inarguably so.
Yeah.
I want to get into that for sure.
We will definitely come back to that.
Yeah.
I was listening to an interview with Olivia Wilde and Caitlin Dever and Beanie Fells, a bunch of them, with Sean Fennessy of The Big Picture. And Olivia Wilde said that they all went to see Fast Times. And so I feel like that movie was possibly a pretty big influence on this movie. And one of the things that Olivia Wilde was kind of trying to talk about is Fast Times having like a lot of types when it comes to characters. And this movie also has a lot of stereotypes. And one of kind of the main themes of this movie is breaking down those stereotypes in various ways. So I think we'll kind of get into that further here in a bit, but I think that Fast Times is also a movie that was extremely influential on this film.
Right.
And a couple others, like we were getting to a time finally where these kind of high school comedies could center on teen girls that weren't necessarily the cool girls. You think about Heathers and Mean Girls and Clueless and Bring It On. Like these are all high school movies revolving around teen girls, but they're the popular girls. Or even in Mean Girls, it's like Katie's new, but she's still Lindsay Lohan. She's still hot.
She still gets folded into the popular
She still gets
girls.
folded in, and even before then, she's still hot. Like, and so this is a movie where it like embraces their nerdiness, and it allows them to kind of be losers. You know, they're not like outcast. They're not like, they're allowed to kind of not be cool.
Yeah.
In a way that a lot of other teen girl comedies didn't really have that same, they weren't allowed that.
Yeah, I think in many ways that the movie that kind of heralded the change that you can see Booksmart as a part of, that movie was Lady Bird.
Totally.
Yeah, which is,
Big time.
I think not coincidentally was the first place I saw Beanie Feldstein.
Yeah.
But yeah, where you see, these not conventionally cool characters put at the center. Quite notably, too, one member of this pair, Amy, is queer and presented in such a way where, it's not highlighted. I mean, it's put in the spotlight, but it's not sensationalized.
Yeah,
I would agree.
It's just sort of stated.
Yeah, it's just who she is.
Because she came out sophomore year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, which that was a detail I, initially and still really appreciate about Booksmart.
Totally.
With that main pair of the movie. I mean, I think there are relatable things that I find in both of them, but I especially related to Amy.
Yeah.
As I guess the more soft-spoken of the two, and like the ways of interacting with other people, I felt
some kinship.
I felt some kinship too. Relevant to say as well, another funny coincidence, Caitlin Deaver and I are almost exactly the same age.
Oh, there we
yeah.
go.
Like almost to the day?
Yeah, I mean, I looked her up, and she's, I think, about 2 weeks older than me on the calendar. Yeah.
Yeah, another movie that I thought about is the movie that you've seen the most in theaters, which is 8th Grade.
Oh, yes, big time.
For me, after seeing 8th Grade, I felt like the meme that's like, I'm in this picture and I don't like it. That's how I felt about 8th Grade, which is it's a very well done movie that I was like, I live this, I don't need to watch it. Whereas Booksmart is a more fun version of that. I'm like, I live this, kind of. I mean, I was not anywhere near valedictorian, but I still feel like I had some similarities to these two characters. I definitely relate to Amy more than I do to Molly, as you said, Julian. And this is, I don't want to say kinder, because, the main character in 8th Grade is still portrayed in a very kind way, but it makes me feel a little less pathetic to relate to Amy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that movie revels in a lot of the really uncomfortable aspects of being that age. And I think a movie like Booksmart immediately tries to make a joke about it.
Yeah.
Oftentimes a quite good one. The movie is very funny.
Very funny.
I will say I didn't mean to be totally reductive when I posed that question.
Oh, no.
But I think the movie is very aware of the long tradition of high school movies. You brought up Fast Times at Ridgemont High. You brought up Lady Bird. I think it's definitely trying to sort of position itself as a worthy entrant amongst all of those other ones. Yeah. I'm going to stick a pin in my Training Day thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
We'll come back to them later, because I think I'd rather discuss some other things first. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Madeline, it was you who mentioned that there's a big theme in Booksmart about, looking past the external appearances of people and understanding them for who they really are. And I mean, I think one of the other details that situates Booksmart in time distinctly is that, and which is not true about Superbad, is that Booksmart is also a movie of the social media era. And social media, I mean, I always knew it was there, but I think I was the most cognizant this time of the fact that it plays a quite consequential role in the progression of this narrative. There are moments where Molly and Amy know where to go next because of something that they see on social media. And I think one detail actually that I noticed more this time than in any prior time is that when Molly and Amy have their big falling out near the end of the movie, that there's just all these cameras on them. People have their phones out and are filming them.
With flash on, which
flash.
is like, I guess, how we can see that they're filming. But I'm like, who films a video with flash on?
I think there's a lot of people who just in the heat of the moment just do that without regard for the fact that they haven't turned that off.
Right.
Like, I thought that it was interesting that social media, it's intrinsic to the narrative of Booksmart, I think accurately. And I mean, do we think there's kind of a intentional dichotomy of social media and aiming to look past people's appearances towards their true selves? Do you think that those are intentionally placed together in the movie, or that they're kind of just coincidentally there? What do you both think?
I have always kind of thought that the presence of social media was really just an inescapable feature of making a movie in 2018 or 2019, whenever it was made. But I actually never really felt like it was trying to say more. on a bigger level. But I don't know how you feel.
I kind of agree in that I think it's just kind of a fact of life, but something we've talked about in our last episode was that Bottoms is an example of a more modern high school comedy that doesn't have an element of social media. So it is possible to make a modern comedy set in a high school that doesn't have it, but I do think it's more obvious when it's not apparent than when it is in the modern day, because it's such a just like implied part of being a teenager.
It's like running water. It's just part of life,
Yeah, and it's there to move the story along. It's there as, I think, a plot device.
Yeah. I think I found it particularly interesting, though, that all those phones come out when the two are having their fight.
Yeah, I do think that is a really interesting moment. Yeah, as you said, them people in the background filming their fight. And another thing that's interesting is that the background dialogue fades out there. So
it's a very shot moment in the movie. It's one of the scenes that I think has always stuck with me. Sorry.
We're focused entirely on the two of them and their fight. And at first you're not sure if we're just focusing on their sound because that's what's important and we don't need, the kind of party filler dialogue in the background. But you slowly realize that it is that quiet in the party itself, that they are so entrenched in their fight and getting so loud and it's getting so out of hand that everything else, I think, is dying away. And how I like that moment ends is that they continue to fight, and even their dialogue, like their sound, also fades. Even though we see them continue to argue. We don't
it's very well
hear
done.
The end of it.
And
I really, really like that touch.
That something pretty traumatic is happening between them.
It's breaking between them.
For that moment, anyway. I mean, they make up for it pretty quickly. I think, part of what comes into focus in that scene, too, really are the cores of their characters, which is that, in this case, Molly is kind of the mouth of the pair of them, the one who is a little bit more, immediate to act and, has more vocal aspirations for herself and for them as friends. And then, Amy's a little more soft-spoken. I mean, she has, a similar level of aspiration, but she goes about it a little more by her own means. And that, one thing that comes into focus in that scene too is that her plan to go to Botswana for the summer, that's, this is something that she's not just doing for the summer, it's for the whole year. That she kind of quietly makes this big plan. That's not really something that it seems like Molly would do. She seems very outspoken about any big plan that she's going to have.
Yeah, but I mean, Amy knows that Molly's going to be upset about this.
She does know, yeah.
And it's true because, as you said, Molly has plans for the both of them. But we don't actually, I think, know what Amy's plans are beyond her
Botswana.
gap year and going to Columbia. I don't think we know what she wants to study because Molly's plans have kind of overridden everything for them. Which is one of the first ones is Superbad, but we'll get to that.
But that, it's even in spite of Molly maybe having kind of the alpha appearance of the two of them as friends, there's kind of a desperation that she has that guides her actions all the way through in a fashion similar to Seth, to the extent that there can be similarities drawn between those characters.
Sure.
Yeah.
Apart from the relation of the actors.
Yeah. But you were also talking about the stereotypes in this film. And one of the things that Katie Silberman, who was in the interview that I was talking about earlier with Sean Fennessy, one of the things she talked about, she and Olivia Wilde, is that they wanted at the beginning the audience to kind of be on Amy and Molly's side in the sense of like viewing their classmates the way that they do.
Right.
Viewing them as stereotypes. And then throughout the film, as we learn more about not just our main characters, but all of these side players as well, by the end, like we see that they are complex people as well. And they are not what we saw them as at the surface level, which is what Amy and Molly have seen them as long as they've known them. They've not really bothered to take the time to think that these people could possibly be at their same level of intelligence.
Right. Yeah. And one of the things that I noticed this time watching it was how Molly, while I think she sees herself as maybe quite righteous, also has a lot of missteps in terms of how she goes about looking at people in her life.
Yeah.
I kind of like that it's a little complicated with her. I don't know. I kind of like that. I like that
Yeah.
it wasn't really, she's not just the put upon one. Like,
Yeah, she's not all good.
Yeah.
That, and I think the first character to call that to her attention is Annabelle AAA, the Molly Gordon played character in that bathroom scene early in the movie. Who, when Molly assumes, she is boasting about the fact that she's going to go to Yale, thinking that no one else in that scene is going to go, and then AAA says, "I'm going there too."
Yeah.
And
The other guy's going to Stanford.
Playing soccer, and then the guy working at Google.
Yeah, they're all in the same room at that moment. And
In
then,
a gender-neutral bathroom, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, very great touch.
Yeah.
But then,
Very Ally McBeal.
and then.
I like that.
Yeah, and then I think, the line that Annabelle says afterward is something to the effect of, we just didn't focus only on school.
Right.
Yes, those characters did like to party, but that's not all who they are. It's not all of who they are.
And that's a real epiphany for Molly.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what she goes to Amy with, like, we did it wrong. We
Yeah.
could have done both.
Yeah, I have to say, too, that in that next scene when they're on the hilltop and they're devising their plan to get to a party by the end of the night, I just love the detail of
Guitar player accuracy.
Yeah, the
dulcet.
of
The
Amy,
auto harp?
Amy playing the auto harp, just
thank
saying,
you.
"If you don't say something in the next 10
Yeah,
minutes,
yeah.
I'm gonna take you to a hospital."
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
one thing in the first viewing that was that was a big laugh.
Yeah,
moment.
I don't know if any of the three of us are qualified
No, we're
enough
not.
to
To grade
detect,
that, yeah.
to grade the auto harp playing accuracy.
I would agree. I think we can let that one slide.
I assume that it's accurate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
I don't know that we really see
there's
much
a-
strumming.
Yeah.
There's a
I didn't
moment-
actually think about this until now, but
There's a moment later in the movie, I think it's actually Molly who's just picking up the auto harp and strumming it, and you can hear it's totally atonal too. Yeah, which is not the case in the earlier scenes.
Yeah, so there's some skill to it.
yeah,
I guess so.
maybe we have to learn the instrument to really judge it there.
Yeah, but another thing I wanted to talk about is Katie Silberman saying that she personally, I think, related most to the Billy Lord character.
Sure.
In her own kind of high school experience and the way that people saw her.
Okay.
And we haven't really talked about Billy Lord yet.
Gigi.
But yeah, Gigi.
Yeah.
And she's excellent.
She's a force of nature.
She
She's
is.
so good in this.
Yeah, another source of big laughs in those. I mean, in all viewings of the movie. And I think what struck me about that character in my first viewing is that as heightened as that character is, I do think it's a believable type, and it made me think about. Like, I remember there was a guy who I tangentially knew in college who I liked to joke just spontaneously generated wherever there was a party on campus. And she is that person.
Oh, yeah.
Almost literally, that she appears like with impossible speed at these subsequent parties.
I also love that the movie gives Molly the running gag.
Yeah.
She's like, Jesus, how did you get here? Like,
She almost feels like kind of the phantom of these parties.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, what were
Definitely.
your thoughts on that character?
I thought she was just wonderful comedic relief.
Yeah.
I feel like she doesn't quite get the fully realized arc that I think AAA gets.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
her best friend,
Jared.
Jared.
Who he's wonderful in this movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's so good in this.
He's so good.
He,
Skylar Gassando, yeah.
he gets more of an emotional arc. We get a little bit more backstory on him, whereas Gigi is, like, as you said, she's the comedic relief. Like, we don't know anything about Gigi. We know a little bit about Jared.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
And then that Jared is this kind of type. I mean, he's a type that exists in all generations, but that there's a lot in the scenery around him that situates the movie very firmly in its present. Like him having "fuck boy" on his license plate. Yeah,
that's true.
But also then like giving out these gift bags with iPads in them. Like, he really does feel like if not a creation, like certainly someone very affected by the social media age too.
I mean, yes, but also, as he said, like, I think it's Molly that tells him, like, you can't buy people's friendship.
Right.
And he's like, I see my dad do it all the time.
Right.
So it's not just like living in the age of social media.
That's
It's
right.
the fact that he's come from this experience of extreme privilege and unlimited money.
Yeah.
And that's how he has seen people successfully navigate social situations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I want to preface with the disclaimer that this happens to be a very unfortunate pairing of names, but Jared kind of struck me as the Fogel of Booksmart.
Oh.
Jared Fogel.
Oh,
Bad pairing. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry it
Unfortunate.
has to be that pair,
No,
but
it's
I mean,
okay.
it's a coincidence.
That's all right. That's fine.
yeah.
But yeah, I think he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to admit, and this is where I'll kind of come back a little bit to my like training day thoughts
Yeah.
here. Okay, training day takes place over the course of a day in much the same way Booksmart does.
Mm-hmm.
There are two people who drive around in
Yeah.
vehicles quite a bit from place to place. There are people who are on drugs in both movies, but that was about as far as I felt like the readily accessible connections to those movies could get. Like Training Day is a movie about how power corrupts. It's about how one person slowly realizes that they're in the presence of somebody who's not just kind of unusual or has like different methods of doing something, that there's like true blue like evil at the core of this person that they're around. Honestly, that just made me think Heathers is the Training Day of high school movies. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's way more tied to that than
Yeah.
Booksmart. But there is a lot of hip hop in the soundtrack of Training Day.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hip hop in this
soundtrack of Booksmart, and the use of hip hop in this movie, it just didn't sit well with me. There's a lot of hip hop in this movie that uses a lot of bad, like a lot of slurs.
Totally.
So
Yeah,
I
I
was kind
found
of
that a
curious.
little jarring.
I find it a little jarring too. And then one of the things that Olivia Wilde did when she was on set is she blasted hip hop nonstop.
Yeah, I was
throughout the
going
making
to
of the
add
movie.
this if you didn't, because she mentioned that in the interview with Sean Fennessy, that
Yeah.
they played a lot of hip hop on set. I don't want to misquote her. I should have written it down, but she was talking about like, blasting a lot of female led hip hop like Lizzo, but also I believe she said hardcore male hip hop like Kendrick. And I was like, that feels like kind of a weird quote personally.
Yeah.
If you weren't going to reference that.
Yeah,
I think
no.
that-
But I think there was something about the fact that hip hop was used so much to create an atmosphere amongst a lot of characters that honestly they're not people of color. And thinking back a little bit on my own time in high school, that it's a time when I think your connection with that music doesn't really go a step further, and you aren't necessarily considering some of the social aspects at play in this music. The decision to blast a lot of hip hop around a lot of people where what's talked about is not necessarily
Relevant to their
relevant to
lived
the experiences
experience.
of the people who are in the
Yeah.
movie. If it was a way of big upping yourself, creating bravado that isn't there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When I watch this movie now, all those needle drops feel kind of like unearned hands that you play.
They're also kind of excessive. I think this movie has too many needle drops, hip hop or otherwise.
Yeah. It's a noticeable aspect of it. I think there are, not to completely take away from it, there are some good needle drops in
Yeah,
Booksmart.
there
yeah.
are some good ones. yes.
And some of the hip hop is not bad either.
Yeah.
I just
It's copious.
understanding the context of how it played such a huge role behind the
Yeah.
scenes. Also, I can't watch this movie and remove that from the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see why that would, I totally see your perspective on that. And yeah, when I had heard that they were blasting a lot of hip hop on set, I was like, I mean, that's great. You're creating this kind of party experience on set, but I think there is kind of there's something a little bit odd about it as well.
At
Yeah.
surface level.
Just like using the genre as a tool.
Yeah.
As a tool, and in a way that I think people in high school would use it.
Yeah.
And so in some ways I'm like, I kind of get it. And then in other ways I'm like, again, it's a very personal experience for me to sort of watch it and be like, I feel like I really outgrew this. And I felt like within a year or two of being out of high school, it was very clear to me that my relationship with a lot of this music had to consider a lot of other things. And I feel like this movie doesn't really do that. Yeah. All right. I'm done with that.
Yeah. But to shift gears now, but stay within Booksmart, I mean, one detail that Booksmart certainly has that Superbad does not is that both of the main characters have these crushes that they're seeking out who they do not end up with. That, there's this heartbreaking moment when Amy is swimming in the pool at the final party and then she sees Nick and Ryan up next to each other and it's so obvious what's going on. honestly, a relatable moment in the movie.
Sure.
I think we've all been there, seeing, just when you think you have your shot, you miss it.
Right.
With a person you're into. I thought it was interesting that it has that twist where they, this kind of revelation of unconscious desires that both the main characters do not get to hook up with the people who they want to.
But they hook up with different people.
But they do hook up with different people. It's, the trope in writing in general of the conscious desire morphing into or revealing a secondary unconscious desire. I think that's very prominently on display in Booksmart. It's a good detail. I like it too. But yeah, I think it's interesting that it happens for both of the characters. That's something that's less true in Superbad. I feel like, whatever your assessment of the quality of that movie, there's a little bit less of those sort of conventional writing tactics used in the same way.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan and Nick ending up together is also presented as kind of a twist.
Yeah.
Because at this point, I mean, we have not seen them interact. And we also, at this point, do not know whether or not Ryan is interested in men.
Right.
Because Amy, as you said, Amy is a lesbian.
Yeah.
And she has a crush on Ryan, who is a girl. And she also does not know. At one point, Molly says something like, "Oh, she wore a polo to prom," but as Amy rightfully points out, like, well, that's about her gender expression, which is different than her sexuality.
Right.
And yeah, I think that's a good point. And so when we see her with Nick, that is presented as a twist.
Yeah, I think it really is, for the reasons you mentioned, a very clever twist in that way. But I remember actually with a friend who I saw the movie with back in 2019. That friend was commenting that he thought the Ryan character was really well cast. That the physical appearance of the actor who played Ryan was like not the most conventionally attractive sort of person. I mean, don't get me wrong, a very attractive person, but
and a very cool looking person.
Yeah.
She can kickflip.
Yeah,
she's a skateboarder.
Yeah. Straight up. That takes...
No, like, I think the actor is a professional skateboarder.
Awesome.
But that sort of, the look of that character is not, the way that, like a attractive, ostensibly femme-presenting person is usually presented on screen.
Yeah.
I agree with that detail. I think it is a very interesting and nice piece of casting. It's good for representation in that way. Talking about the other side of that pair with Nick, I mean, he is kind of presented as like kind of a bonehead in the vein of maybe like Don and Dazed and Confused at first. It's revealed there's more depth to him. But speaking of Dazed and Confused, I thought that, when he's talking and really, I mean, flirting with Molly at the final party before he's seen making out with Ryan, I thought he pulls kind of a Randall Pink Floyd moment there where he's just like, he is totally leading her on.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Oh, he's such a flirt.
Yeah, he's such a flirt. And it's, it made me think of like Randall and Jody the moment they have
thought
in
the same
Dazed and Confused. She was
Definitely
totally being
not.
led
Oh,
on
yeah,
there.
she didn't let him, for
totally.
sure.
Yeah. Do you have any more do you two have any more thoughts on either of those two as characters?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
Not really. I mean, I do finally want to maybe get into some of the comparisons I wrote down between this
Please.
movie and Superbad.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about how just like in the overall plot, there are some similarities. It's these two close friends who are kind of on the outside of the main social circle, who are going to a party right before they go off to college. Like, this is a very similar plot, and you cannot deny that this is a similar plot.
Yeah.
Even if Beanie Feldstein and Jonah Hill weren't siblings, like, it's a similar plot no matter who you cast. There were a few things that I picked up on, like Amy, after seeing Ryan and Nick hook up, she, runs to the bathroom very upset and ends up starting at least to hook up with a different girl from school who she vomits all over.
I was going to say, that's one of my
How many
comparisons.
other movies is there like someone vomiting on someone during sex?
Yeah.
Like that doesn't happen all that often in movies.
Right.
Well, and it's meant to be a very similar beat for the character.
Yeah.
That's one I wrote down too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed too that in all of these movies, so I think, between Superbad and Booksmart, you get 3 official sex scenes, but none of them reach climax.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. It's
Well,
important to note.
it's high school.
Yeah, it's high school. Yeah, it's, whether it's, vomit or the cops breaking in, something gets in the way.
Which gets to something else on my list, which is the fact that cops break up this party the
Right,
same way
right.
cops break up the party in Superbad. We don't know these cops, I don't think.
Yeah, and they don't get developed in Booksmart at all, really.
Yeah, it's not Seth Rogen and Bill Hader.
No,
Yeah.
I think,
unfortunately.
from my memory. I mean, yes, obviously, cops breaking up a high school party, like that happens all the time in movies. That's not too egregious, but I'm just saying that's how it ends. And in Superbad, we talked a little bit about like Seth's triumphant or arguably triumphant or not moment of saving Evan from the party. Whereas here we are in Booksmart, where Amy doesn't save Molly specifically, she saves everyone.
Yes.
I am confused about how this actually helped anyone.
I am a little bit too. Yes.
She like runs. She's like, I'm going to create a diversion. And then she runs off and like pass towards the cops, actually, which I think very dangerous, bad idea.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Could have ended up extremely differently, and then ends up getting arrested. There's video of this, meaning someone was there filming. So the cops just kind of gave up on the rest of the party and the rest of the kids because they were like, we have to arrest this girl
This
who ran at
single
us.
person,
This
as
single
opposed to this
person.
flock of other young people.
Yeah,
exactly.
Inebriated young people. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the whole, like, they've had these lifelong plans that are being disrupted as they go to different colleges. And then I also, the movie starts with one friend picking up the other friend from
In a
school.
car.
Right.
In their car, or for school in their car. And then also in the scene in the co-ed bathroom, someone is drawing a dick on the wall.
There we go. There's that. There's that too.
So-
So Amy is roped in by a bunch of people that she is maybe not particularly familiar with to get up and sing.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I wrote that down and then I
Yeah.
forgot about it.
Yes, exactly. The same way that Michael Cera's Evan is asked to sing.
And she's great. I'd say
Yeah.
maybe even better than Michael Cera.
I would say so too.
One detail that I loved, I actually only noticed this time in that scene that I really loved, was that the Noah Galvin character is commenting on the side, like something like, she has no breath control, but she's on pitch.
Which I disagree with.
Yeah, I
and
just-
from the breath, I think she has great breath control, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
But it is a funny character moment, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's great in this.
Yeah, Noah
He's
Galvin's
so
great.
funny.
He's
Yeah.
very, very winning.
And that's another thing that Booksmart has more distinctly is that you really get to see the theater kids
Yeah,
in this movie, with specifically Noah Galvin and the Austin Crute character.
Yeah.
Alan and George.
Yes.
Barcelona.
That's right. I love that touch. That's
Yeah.
very funny. You know, we were talking earlier about the presence of stereotypes. I feel like Superbad doesn't really go there that much.
That doesn't play with that as
It
much.
really doesn't
no.
play with it nearly as much. Yeah. But
Yeah.
I think both movies also have a party before you get to the big party.
That's true.
That's true.
You know?
Yeah, in
Yeah,
Booksmart we have
precursor.
two.
Yeah, exactly.
Although,
yeah.
I mean, Jared's party is kind of barely a party.
Yeah.
Like, how many people need to go to a party to call it a party? Is it four people? Is that a party?
Yeah.
yeah.
If the people who are paid to be there, do they count?
More of a party scenario than a real party.
I do love that little detail where he puts on the helmet and he goes like, hey, and then it gets quieter. His yell gets quieter when the helmet goes on. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful. Very
good.
funny.
Yeah, I mean, as I was starting to talk about like the theater kids in the movie. I mean, you know, you could say that Superbad is a movie made by the so-called frat pack, and then when it comes to Booksmart, I mean, Ben Platt's not in this movie, but you could call a bunch of these people the Platt pack.
Oh,
yeah,
I like
totally.
that.
Yeah, whether it's Beanie Feldstein, Molly Gordon, Noah Galvin,
Yeah.
Theater Camp, which is another movie that has
Yeah.
a lot of these people. Which
and
is
has
that-
Ben Platt.
Yeah, it has
But
been
not
Platt, but
Beanie
not
Feldstein.
Beanie Feldstein.
Right.
Right. So it's a little bit of a
Yeah.
flip
How do we?
there.
What do we have to do to get them all in one movie together?
I don't know. I'm sure they'd all love to do it. They
Oh,
all
yeah.
seem like people that get along.
Well, let's see if Richard Linklater puts them in Merrily We Roll Along. There's
Yeah.
already Beanie, there's already Ben Platt in
Yeah,
that movie.
got two down.
Ooh, yeah.
2 out of
And he's-
4, baby.
He has got 15 more years to do
Yeah,
this.
he has plenty
He
of
has
time.
got plenty of time. I mean, honestly, I'm going to go there. Maybe there's a chance that in that time, Richard Linklater hears these very words. I don't know how likely that is, but, you know, it's better to assess the
Assume.
possibility
Yeah,
than
yeah.
not,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Yeah.
So please, Richard Linklater, if you're listening to this, please consider casting.
Noah Galvin
Find a part for
Yeah.
them.
and Molly Gordon.
Exactly,
Yeah.
please.
But ultimately, I wanted to ask you guys if you think that the comparison to Superbad helped this movie or if it was detrimental to this movie in some way. And do we think it's accurate?
I definitely think it's accurate. I
Yeah.
think one of the things that I do think is kind of interesting, it didn't do well in its first opening
Run, yeah.
weekend, and I think Olivia Wilde came out on Twitter and like actively was like pleading for people to come and see the movie. Like, it's funny you mentioned you listening to an interview with Sean Fennessy, because I've listened to The Big Picture as well, and I think I remember a moment where he talked about how he wondered if this movie would have done better if it was called Super Good. As a play on that if the movie would have made more money, if it leaned into it more. I don't know. I don't really know if this movie is hurt by it. In fact, in some ways, I feel like the success and the notoriety and the love that a movie like Superbad has kind of just like creates this appetite, I think, for a movie like this to give their unique twists on it, and to ultimately find an audience. I do think that this movie has done better than a movie that made what it made in the theaters. I think it's having a better life post its time in theaters than a lot of movies that make what it made. So,
I agree. What do you think, Julian?
Yeah, I think that part of how the Superbad comparison helps the movie is that it also helps put into focus its distinctions too.
That's true.
There's a lot of similarities to Superbad, but then when you see the things that Booksmart really has that Superbad does not, those stand out a bit more. Whether it's, time and setting details, or it's, the characterization of the two leads. Like, on the one hand, I really do understand the connection that these movies have, but they both have a lot of great qualities that are completely of their own.
Sure.
So like I would watch either one without even thinking of the other and still have a great time.
Yeah. I would definitely rewatch this movie in a way that, like I said, I have really no intention of rewatching Superbad again.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll change my mind in 10 years. But I would totally rewatch this movie in a couple years and see if it holds up for me. I, much like you, Emilio, I think really liked this movie the first time I saw it and still really like it and still really enjoy it. But I do think it sunk a little bit for me on rewatch. I think it slows down. The pacing is, I think, a little odd in this movie.
I agree.
And in a way that it doesn't keep me fully engaged all the way through, but I still really, really like it.
Personally, I like this movie more than Superbad.
I agree. Yeah.
I think it has some nuance to it.
Yeah.
It just, in spite of everything all my misgivings about the soundtrack and some of the context behind it, I think it does handle a lot of things that Superbad also tries to get at, but with a lot more nuance. I also the very last beat of this movie is absolutely sweet. And it also does something that is quite the opposite of Superbad, which is that Superbad sort of leaves you on this note of, their relationship is never going to quite be the same.
Yeah.
And with Booksmart, it's like, no, this is a lifelong friendship.
They're going to keep their friendship a priority.
Exactly.
Moving forward.
Yeah. That last scene is a moment too where if you're going to make any comparisons to Lady Bird, I feel like there is a very clear comparison there.
Definitely.
Oh, totally.
But one that is also, it's taken a different way in Booksmart too, in a way that, to add to the point you both just made, I really like too.
One thing that I feel like I have to address, I thought that the Jessica Williams teacher storyline with the student was bigger in my memory.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that it didn't take up quite as much runtime in the actual film as I remembered it, because I really, really dislike that particular subplot.
Well, we were talking earlier, I think, about how Booksmart also has adult characters that
very stunted.
That seem to regress in the presence of younger people. What's her name? Mrs. Fine, is that her name?
Yes.
Ms. Fine. Yeah,
Fine,
Ms. Fine. Pardon me. Excuse me. Is the Officer Slater and Michaels of Booksmart. You can look at it a number of ways. I think it certainly feels problematic. I think it also, in some ways, could be considered a bit of an homage to the fact that there are a lot of problematic details or little side plots in high school movies that are of a sexual nature.
Yeah, and oftentimes the genders are flipped.
Yes,
so
exactly.
I mean, I guess that's one thing that this plot point has going for it, is that it flips the genders, but it's still creepy. It's not endorsing this behavior, but she doesn't face any consequences for it either.
Yeah, except for maybe some light embarrassment.
At the
graduation ceremony.
I mean, I think we're about to wrap up. I really enjoyed this movie. I think Booksmart is a wonderful film. I know Julian and I have not seen Don't Worry, Darling, which is Olivia Wilde's follow-up.
Yeah.
And you have seen it.
I have seen it. And you know what? I think it got kind of a bad reputation because of, I guess, some of the behind-the-scenes stuff.
The drama.
The behind-the-scenes drama.
Spitting.
Much like Booksmart, that movie looks fantastic.
It looks like it looks fantastic.
Olivia Wilde clearly has a very strong stylistic vision, I think, for both of these films. I think it certainly carries over and in some ways, I would say strengthens a little bit for a movie like Don't Worry, Darling. Check it out. I think it does some things quite well.
I mean, Olivia Wilde is still early on in her directing career. I'm really interested to see the directions she can go.
Sure.
And same thing with like Beanie Feldstein and Caitlin Dever. I know that Beanie Feldstein is very much, as you talked about earlier, she loves being on stage. She's very much like a theater performer in addition to a film performer. And she's done, some theater since Hello Dolly. She was in Funny Girl last year. And so I'm interested to see the direction that she's going to go. I know that neither of you are gamers, but like Caitlin Dever's thing right now is that she's been cast in season 2 of The Last of Us television show. That character was a very controversial character in the game. I think her casting was fairly controversial in the sense of, first of all, anybody cast into that role was going to have a really hard time because that's a character that even the voice actor and the motion capture actress still to this day get death threats on Twitter.
Oh my God.
This is a character that a very toxic part of this game fan base really hates for really dumb reasons. And we don't really need to get into that. But the other thing about this character is that she's very buff. They're in a zombie apocalypse, and she's on kind of like a revenge mission.
Gotcha.
And so she is
she's bulked up,
built. People were like, Ronda Rousey should play this character. So I think a lot of people were like, interesting casting.
Yeah,
because Caitlin Dever seems like a fairly small person.
Sure. And I don't think many of the roles I think that she's had since maybe suggest that she's somebody who would
maybe not
have that kind of transformation.
Naturally gravitate towards that. As someone that actually did play this game, I'm really, really interested to see her spin on it. I actually like how they went kind of against the expected type by casting her.
Rock on.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah, and even before that happens, I mean, I've been a fan of Caitlin Dever a long time. I think she has a ton of range. She has a ton of credits, too, that are really interesting.
I really liked her in Unbelievable.
I haven't seen that yet.
That was a very, very good show.
First place I ever saw her was Short Term 12, which also is it's a movie where I think, Brie Larson is the star of it, but Caitlin Dever has she really steals the show in that movie, too.
I'm with you guys. I think that they are really quite good in their roles, and a movie like Booksmart makes you go, awesome. What's next?
And, she's in Dear Evan Hansen for Ben Platt, so she can, collect them all when it comes to this friend group.
Yeah. Even she will be part of the Platt pack.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Are we ready to wrap up with
I think we're ready to
unlikely shared universe?
Finally, we can get there for sure. Who wants to go first?
I can kick it off.
Go for it.
Going back to Superbad for a moment. So we've said a lot about these two police officers we see in the film. And let's say that Officer Slater, he kind of already cops to it, so to speak, in Superbad, that he has a severe lack of purpose in life.
Yes.
And that, he hated cops as a kid, but could not resolve to be anything more than that as an adult. And maybe even in this role as a cop, that too is just not fulfilling him after some time.
He doesn't seem very fulfilled.
No,
right.
Really
he just, after that night with Officer Michaels and with Fogel of, wrecking that car and setting it on fire and shooting at it, he just realizes this isn't fulfilling for him. But maybe he doesn't know how to stifle his violent urges, and his idea of fulfillment is not to continue being a cop, but to enlist in the Marines. And, but sadly, he's mistaken here too. He enlists in the Marines and has a traumatizing experience in Afghanistan that sends him back to the States. I mean, he's really feeling this lack of purpose now, and he, has no urge other than this primal desire to simply keep on living. And in
Livin.
Livin. He keeps living, but he is completely jaded and carries out the rest of his days as a hitman.
Mm.
That is
Yeah.
With a desire to act. If
Well,
I'm not mistaken.
he doesn't know this just yet. He
Oh,
But maybe
okay.
someday.
carries out the rest of his days living as a hitman, and then one day, while hunting a target for a job, happens upon this little acting school in Los Angeles, and suddenly he realizes this is what he's wanted the whole time. This is the purpose he's wanted. And he can't undo the life he's lived already, but he can just only hope to live this acting life in whatever amount of time he has left. Oh, and one more detail. When he leaves the army and comes back to the United States, he drops the Slater label and assumes the name Barry Berkman.
Mm.
So if you're curious on the rest of his story, check out Barry on HBO.
Yes, please do.
Second high school episode in a row where there's been a Barry reference.
Maybe
in
we
this
should
show.
just do that every week.
Yeah, quite entertaining and very well done show.
Yeah.
I agree. I can go next if you want.
Sure.
All right,
Go for
cool. So I'm thinking specifically about Jules, Emma Stone's character in Superbad. We find out that she has an older brother. I'm wondering, though, does she have a younger sister? I think it's very possible that Jules has a younger sister that she actually takes care of quite a bit. She graduates, from high school. Luckily she stays close to home because there is a very sudden and rather violent zombie outbreak that takes place. Because of that, she assumes the big sister, if not maybe maternal role to her younger sister, and takes her away from their West Coast trappings and maybe moves her somewhere closer to Middle America, perhaps Wichita. And it's there that they, fend for themselves and hone their survival skills in a zombie apocalypse. And because she's ditched her name Jules for where she has now taken up residence in the country, I think it's very possible that the name that she gives some people that she meets is not actually her name either.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
think that's
that
very possible.
The name Krista might actually not be her name. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And we're coming full circle here for me personally, because the person that I was thinking of earlier when I said like the Seth in my life, when I met him, introduced himself as Tallahassee in reference to this movie. He was like, everybody calls me Tallahassee. Spoiler alert, no one called him Tallahassee. And
Gotcha.
I also did not call him Tallahassee.
Putting on some airs.
Yeah. And you, of course, are talking about Zombieland.
Zombieland.
I am talking Zombieland, correct?
Yes.
Or Zombieland 2 Double Tap,
Yes, could be that too.
potentially.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one.
Neither have I.
Same.
So you guys both went Superbad. I went Booksmart. So we don't know that much about Jared. He's clearly very well off financially, but we don't know anything about his family other than that they're super rich. And we don't know how they got their money. So, I mean, it's totally possible that they could be televangelists. And I could be wrong, but we don't know how long he's been at this school. I don't think that we necessarily know that he's been going to school with them for that long. He could be new this year.
He also, he is actually a student there. Sorry. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
perhaps not even, I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, it was at graduation, but
Yeah.
anyway, I mean, that's kind of my point though, is that we don't know how long he's been here. And I would like to propose that before moving to LA, Skylar was living with his family of uber rich megachurch pastors in South Carolina. And he was fed up with his life there and decided to move to California and pursue stunt performing. However, he soon begins to realize that he never really experienced a traditional high school life back in South Carolina. So he poses as a teenager to enroll in this school that we see in Booksmart. But clearly this isn't all he imagined it to be. So perhaps at one point he will return back to South Carolina, to his family megachurch, and regain his strong Southern drawl in the process. And this is a show that neither of you have watched, but this is Righteous Gemstones.
I was
gonna
going to
guess
say,
that.
when you talked about the televangelists, that's what came up.
Yeah.
He's really funny in that.
I would believe it.
Everyone's really funny in that.
I would absolutely believe it.
Yeah, I had to wonder too if perhaps that father of his, maybe once when he was much younger, was living in LA and had a date with a young woman named Alana, and happened to at a dinner party one night, abstain from a certain ritual that was occurring based on this Alana's religion, because of his own sort of perceived non-alignment with said religion in spite of her protests.
Right. That's true. Yeah, there's a lot of bad in the world, right?
There is a lot of that in the world.
Yeah. I also think it's very possible that Jared is a marvel of modern science, and I'll explain why. Many years ago, there was a young boy, and he had a dog, and his name was B-Dog.
Mm-hmm.
And B-Dog was all into hip-hop, very much fitting for a universe
this
like
movie.
Booksmart. And B-Dog, along with some of his other friends,
Mm-hmm.
takes a flight into space, goes to the moon, but before going to the moon, actually docks with a Russian space station.
Very important.
Hangs out or maybe evades a particular cosmonaut named Yuri, but has this unbelievable adventure in space. He comes back, and I'm sure that the space program was fascinated by this dog and the many dogs, I guess, intellectual capacities that they were able to hang tough in a flight all through space. And it would not shock me if the space program found a way to turn B-Dog into a human. And that human would be Jared.
As you were doing this, I was like, I've only seen Space Buddies once.
I've seen Space Buddies like 10 times.
Which is more times, even the once for me is more times than most people.
That's true. This is, of course,
And I was
Space
like,
Buddies.
is he in this as a human that I don't remember?
No, he's the dog.
He's
He's
one
B-Dog.
of,
He's the
yes,
voice
of
of
course.
B-Dog. And I have to imagine that when he returns back to Earth, the space program is just fascinated with his level of intelligence and finds a way to turn this dog into a human being.
Yeah.
And based on B-Dog's proclivities and his obsession with hip-hop and appearances, and he does come from a family with a lot of money.
I actually think this makes so much sense.
I'm telling you. I think Jared and B-Dog are the same.
Oh, all right.
Wow.
I think that's
That's going to have to round things up.
that's it. I think this is the latest we've ever
Recorded.
ended recording.
I think so too.
Timestamp 1:21 a.m.
Yeah. Maybe not for you, the listener, but for us recording here.
Before we wrap up, do we want to talk about what we're doing next?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we are reaching the conclusion of our cycle of high school movies episodes. And for that conclusion, we are going to go to our close-up segment, and the figure we are going to go in close-up on is none other than the director, Amy Heckerling.
Yeah, Amy Heckerling. Yeah.
To discuss some notable high school movies that she has been at the helm of, namely Fast Times at Ridgemont High
Discussed in this very episode.
That's
and Clueless, also mentioned in passing.
Yep.
And there will be one other movie. Emilio, do you want to cover that one?
I can tell it is a high school adjacent film
Yeah.
that she wrote and directed called Loser that I have not seen. Have you guys seen it?
Nope.
This
Not
will
yet.
be like a mise en scene rolled into our close-up, I think.
Yeah. I've seen Fast Times. I have not seen Clueless
I've
yet.
seen Fast Times and Clueless.
I also have seen Fast Times and
Yeah.
Clueless, but none of us have seen Loser. I know that there are aspects of high school and more saliently college age in that film. So we're gonna do that. But yeah, she's helmed, I think, two monster
Classic high school
classic
movies.
films, and so I think it'll be quite cool to dig into her. Very excited to do that.
Me too.
Totally.
Awesome.
Well, as always, you can follow us at Sleepless Cinematic Pod on Instagram and TikTok. You can follow myself on Letterboxd at patronessofcats.
Or you can follow me on Letterboxd at Julian_Barthold.
And you can email us at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com.
Awesome. Guys, thanks for hanging tough on this one.
We did it.
We did it.
Yeah.